right, in this video, we're going to talk about section 2.5, and this is all about material handling. And, when I talk about materials, what I'm talking about and what I'm referencing to is the things that we are using every day in our work environments. Those are materials. So if I'm on the laboratory side of the house, we're going to be using solutions and reagents and solvents and chemicals. Those are materials for me. If I'm going to be on the other side of the house, which is the manufacturing line, I'm going to be using the same stuff. It's going to be some type of chemical. It's going to be some type of compound, some type of solution, some type of reagent. Something is going on the manufacturing side of the house that I'm going to have to handle with care. And that's what this section really is all about. So the reason that we're talking about it is because, well, first, I want to discuss heavy things. And heavy things are going to be a problem in the workforce, again, more on the manufacturing side than they are in the laboratory side. But lab folk, you're not out of it either. And the reason that I say that is because very often we're lifting like 4.5-liter jugs, and it could be boxes of 4. There's 4 in a case. So there's going to be times where I'm going to have to get these boxes, lift them, transport them, tug them. Heavy pieces of equipment have to be transported, maybe getting out of storage cabinets, placed onto the lab counter. Those heavy kind of objects are there. We're going to encounter those on the laboratory side of the house, absolutely. But as far as the manufacturing side, you're going to find a little heavier things that we're going to use because we're doing everything in bulk. Again, this is something that I keep saying over and over and over throughout the time that I'm giving these lectures, because I think that it's very important for you to keep that in mind. So we are transporting and we are measuring very large quantities of things in order to make very large quantities of product. All right, so we need to talk a little bit about material handling. There are musculoskeletal disorders. Oh gosh, I sounded fancy with that, didn't I? All right, so let me kind of spell that out for you. M-U-S-C-U-L-O, musculoskeletal, Skeletor. All right, He-Man movie, yay. Musculoskeletal disorders that is going to be a problem if we're not very careful. These are abbreviated with an acronym. It's MSDs, musculoskeletal disorders. And there's actually something else called a cumulative trauma disorder. And those, of course, are going to be CTDs. And these two things are going to affect my nerves. And, I'm probably affecting your nerves right now. It's like, oh, God, I got to get these videos done. I got to get that test done. Oh, God, I'm a nervous wreck. Well, I hope not. But, there are disorders that affect my nerve system, my muscles, my blood vessels, ligaments, tendons. I mean, those types of things are going to be a problem, and we want to limit that damage whenever possible. So all of these risk factors will come into play because risk factors will begin to give us issues with either musculoskeletal or this cumulative trauma disorder that I want to stay away from. So number one, or I'm going to put A here, I guess, is lifting heavy items. I want to pay attention to this because if I'm lifting heavy items day in and day out over and over and over, I am putting stress onto my body. And the stress is going to happen in the muscles and the nerves and the blood vessels and the ligaments and the tendons of me going through that motion. So I want to make sure that I'm not overexerting myself because I'm going to pay for that maybe the next day or maybe even years later. It's going to catch up to me. So heavy items are something that we need to pay attention to. Bending is always going to be a problem in a job or work environment. If I'm constantly bending over, lifting up, bending over, lifting up, I want you to think about going to the gym and doing that motion over and over and over and over and over. That can be a very quick problem if you're not doing it in the appropriate way. Next up, anytime that you reach overhead, this is also an issue. If you're trying to reach up something to the top shelf and you're doing this over and over throughout the day, there's going to be a little bit of extra stress on your body, and that extra stress can damage you personally and put your personal safety in danger. So there's a proper way to lift things when it's over our heads, and there's an appropriate kind of weight that's assigned on how we are supposed to lift things over our heads the safest possible way. Next up, pushing and pulling. So this is also going to be some motion here. Again, think of a gym workout. You're pushing weights, you're pulling weights on all of these weight machines. And if you do that day in and day out for hours at a time, you can imagine what it's doing to your muscles and to your body, either that same day, the next day, or again weeks later down the road. So this is something, again, we need to pay attention to. We got to make sure that we're doing this motion safely, so that way we don't damage ourselves in the long run. Next up, I'm going to say awkward body postures. A lot of times when we do things, we think that it's very convenient to twist and turn, or to put ourselves into a situation where I'm kind of in some kind of cramped position, and even for a brief moment in time, maybe I think that that's okay, but it's not the proper way in order to do that job. And, those are things that I, again, need to keep in mind to make sure that I'm doing it in a safe possible manner. And then next, all of the repetition. So I want to make sure that if this is repetitive, and if it's something that I'm doing over and over and over, that I am doing it in a safe way that is going to limit the damage that I'm going to have done to myself. So I'll give you an example here. One day I decided to move a floor vase, and this floor vase is, not the cheap plastic stuff. And it was in the house, and it stood up about to my chin. So it went from the floor all the way up to my chin. Very heavy, right? So I decided to pick up the floor vase. And, of course I had some help. But at the same time, I went to the bottom part of the vase. And that meant that I bent over. All right, so here's number one. Oh, no. I bent over. Next up, oh, no. I lifted a heavy item. And then what I decided to do is kind of caress my hands around the vase, because it was very hard and difficult to pick up from the bottom. It was narrow. So I thought that if I put myself in a position where I could reach and hug the bottom of the vase and then pick it up that way, then I would be able to kind of shift and move this in a better way, in a quicker way that was maybe a little bit more convenient for me. So, oh no, I put myself in an awkward posture. So I had all of these things kind of going on for me, and at that moment in time, it worked and it was fine, and I didn't feel anything pull, and I didn't get damaged in any form or fashion. I transported the vase to where it needed to go, and everything was fine. However, what happened is that 2 or 3 days later, I began to have lower back problems, and then I began to have sciatica problems. And then what happened is that I had damaged myself in 2 areas of the sciatic nerve, one in the lower back and one literally in the butt cheek, because me, being who I am, I guess, has a weird little tendon or nerve that goes through some muscles where normal people just kind of lay on the front or lay on the back. Mine goes through the middle of it. So I had 2 areas of swelling that led to the damage that I had caused myself, basically on how I picked up a vase. So do not do this in real life. Do not do this on the work job. Do not do this and think that you're young and you're healthy and you're the Incredible Hulk and nothing's ever going to happen to you. Because folks, listen, I'm telling you right now, I've done this for many years, and I thought to myself, hey, listen, I can do this. I'm not weak, and I don't think that I'll have a problem kind of helping move this space. That's not an issue with me at all. But sure enough, it was. And even if it was something that I was doing over and over, it's still an issue. All right. There's a area here that we like to talk about, and it's called the power zone. And the power zone is going to be the idea that all of the green area that you're seeing right in here, this is the appropriate area that you should be carrying things, you should be moving things, and it also gives you an idea of the proper poundage. So for most people, 50 pounds is going to be okay. It's going to be very safe. And it's going to be okay and safe if it is close to your body. So if this is kind of chest height in some form or fashion, I'm going to say, well, probably knee height to chest height, then you're going to be okay. That is what we call the power zone. You are able to carry more weight in that area, again, as long as it's closer to your body. So as long as you're standing straight up and down and you have a good posture to yourself, then if your body can hold the 50 pounds, then that's not an issue. This is not a problem. It's typically pretty safe. Then if you notice, what happens here is that as you go further and further away from the body, it goes yellow and then it goes red. So you are leaving the power zone and you're going into a safer zone as you go out. But in order to do that, you're going to have to lower the poundage down. And you're seeing that in the yellow area, you're really kind of sitting at 25 to 35 pounds here. So if you've ever taken a dumbbell weight and you've held it close to yourself, then you're going to see that holding that dumbbell is going to be a little bit easier. Now, if you took that dumbbell and you held it out, arm's length, and it was straight out in front of you, and you just hold it there, that same pound of dumbbell is going to require a little bit more effort. It's going to be a little bit more problem for you to hold it at that level for a longer period of time. So in order to do that safely, we lower the weight down, so that way it makes it easier for you to hold it out that far and to carry it that far, or to hold it up that far. As you go further out, you're down into the red area. This is 20 pounds or less, and that red area is a danger zone. So here we are putting a lot of stress on our body if we're not very careful, and we can damage ourselves while we're working if we're not very careful. So green area, power zone, and I want to stay away from the yellows and the reds. Now, if you look down below, you're seeing that below the knee and above the chest, these are immediate red zones, and these are areas that we need to pay special attention to. So if I'm going to bend down and I'm going to pick up 50 pounds off of the floor, there's a proper way to do that. That is dangerous if I don't know what I'm doing. Or if there's 50 pounds up overhead in my closet and I need to grab that bin and I need to take it off of the shelf and lower it down, and that weighs 50 pounds or more, I'm going to have some issues if I'm not doing it the appropriate way. So anything above our head and anything below our knees, there's a proper way to lift, there's a proper way to transport. And then as we get further away from our body, the same kind of thing is going to happen. There's a proper way to transport materials, and one of those ways is to get lower and lower in poundage because of that. This is such a problem, folks, that they will often require to have signs that are scattered around the facility that say, hey, listen, reminder, there's a heavy object here. You need to be safe about picking up the things, please. So as you can see in the sign here, it says heavy object, 2-person lift is required. You've seen these stamps on maybe heavy boxes that you have to put together furniture-wise or whatever the case might be, but this is a constant reminder, hey, listen, you need help. You are not Hercules. You are not the Incredible Hulk. You cannot do this on your own, and you need help in order to lift heavy objects or to transport heavy objects very often. The signage here is important because lifting has been shown to create over 1/3 of our injuries in the work site. So some type of injury related to heavy lifting, related to bending down, picking things up the wrong way, lifting up, or putting my hands over my head, lifting up heavy objects from above me, lowering them down. Not doing that going according to proper protocol is going to be a problem. So lifting, they do take seriously. Again, over 1/3 of the injuries that we're going to see in the workplace, and we want to limit those injuries whenever that is possible. As far as lifting goes, We talked about the power zone. The power zone is going to be the most appropriate way to lift and carry things, safely at least. And when I'm outside of that power zone, this is where I have to actively think about what goes on. Number one, I want to think about the object weight. Of course, this all relies on the object weight. I mean, come on, folks. If I'm picking up a pencil from the floor, I don't have to stop and think and be like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to do this in the power zone. No, we just naturally do it. And that's okay because that weight is going to be very, very low. But the motion of bending over and coming back up can be a problem for some people, especially if they've suffered back injuries before in the past. So for those people, yes, absolutely, they got to think about the way they bend over, pick up objects, and the way they bend back up. But it's the bending motion that they're really concerned with there, not the object weight. So the object weight is going to be, of course, the number one concern that we're going to have. Number two is all about awkward postures. I don't want to be doing this in a weird way. I don't want to be twisting. I don't want to be turning. I don't want to be putting myself into a pretzel, because this is not the acrobats that I'm training for, folks. It's BioWorks that I'm training for. So I want to make sure that I'm doing this in a natural type of way, a natural fluid body motion that I'm going to have, that I'm going to experience every day in the workplace. Next up is high frequency and long duration. And then number four is inadequate handholds will cause the problems. So high frequency is doing it often and doing it all the time. And then long duration is doing it for long periods of time. If this is a motion that I'm doing and it meets those two criteria, then of course I'm going to make sure that I'm doing this the proper way, and I'm making sure that I'm making, no injuries to myself throughout these simple little motions, or at least at first glance, simple little motions that are taking place. Inadequate handholds, this is kind of the idea that objects or boxes and crates do have handholds. I should be using those. They're in there for a reason. So for instance, if you buy a TV from Walmart, you're going to see handholds on the sides of the boxes. Those are cutouts that your hands can go in, and you can use your hands and pick up the object, which is a TV at that moment, and move it in a little bit better, a little bit easier. So use those handholds. Don't ignore them. They're there for a reason, and that's to help you transport and help you lift in a much better way. Use equipment to help lift. Make sure that you use ramps to transport material up and down in. Make sure that you bend at the knees. I mean, this is all kind of common sense of things that they have told us to do very early on in life, when we do kind of start our very first job or start to kind of work in some type of workforce where physical labor is going to be required. And make sure that you always are doing less than 50 pounds, right? If you're doing greater than 50 pounds, you often need some kind of aid or you need some kind of help. Don't try to lift more than 50 pounds on yourself. Lift up close to the body, chin up, use legs, avoid twisting. So do not use your back to lift. You're going to use your legs to lift. So make sure that you bend at the knees. That will get you closer to the floor. Then, Tracy, put your arm around the base and then use your legs to lift yourself back up. Don't use your lower back to lift that heavy vase up off the floor. Don't wrap your hands around the box and think that that's going to be a little bit easier for you. There's a better way to do that if it's out there. It also says use stands and jigs and rotate tasks, work in teams, take regular breaks. This is all going to be built into your work environment. There's going to be scheduled breaks that you're going to take. There's going to be rotators that's going to happen. And it's one of the reasons, because they don't want you to do tasks for long periods of the time. Next up, use handholds, put in secondary containers whenever possible, and make sure that you use your personal protective equipment, also known as PPE. That personal protective equipment can be a number of different things, and that could be shoes with some type of non-skid on the bottom of them. It could be gloves that will kind of help you grasp and grab things without making it slip a little bit better. Back belts are going to be PPE as well, so that way when you decide to lift that big vase up off the floor, Tracy, you don't injure your lower back, so you're going to help provide that support. The problem here is that things like back belts make people have a false belief, and that false belief is it is able to allow me to become Hercules and pick up more than what I normally can. Absolutely not. No, 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 no. That is not the purpose of a back brace. The back brace is there for extra support, but that does not mean that you can go overkill and do things a little bit more or lift heavier items and not provide any damage to yourself. That is not the purpose of a back brace. That injury is still going to happen, but anything that we can do to prevent injuries from taking place is always going to be a good thing. So don't fall for that trap. Please do not think that your Hercules idea is going to be able to lift heavy objects at this moment just because you have a little simple Velcro back brace on. That's not how this works at all. All right. So in the next section, we're going to talk about storage, and this is going to start 2.6. We're kind of flying through these sections here at the end. A lot of times this stuff is common sense, but it's things that we need to briefly mention, talk about, and touch base with. But we can still go through the motions. Absolutely. That's not a big thing at all. But this concept here was, again, material handling. And it was all about how do I pick up, how do I lift heavy objects, how do I transport them the proper way. And I now have maybe a little bit of better insight into that, at least at first glance. All right. So next up is storage. And that's where we're going to pick off in the next video.